This week on Barely Homesteading, the waterer for our chicken coop. So this week on Barely Homesteading, we're going to continue talking about the improvements that we have made to the chicken coop. And this week is another ease of use improvement, our automatic watering system. The next ease of use improvement that we're going to install in the chicken coop is an automatic waterer. Now, we did something similar to this in Colorado and we learned some things. One of the things that we learned is that algae is going to grow in that tank unless we do something to discourage that. And so one of the things that we're going to change with our design here in Washington is we are going to completely enclose the water tank so that no light can get in. Because with no light, the algae really doesn't have anything to produce energy through photosynthesis. So we're going to install a floor, then we're going to raise the tank up on a pedestal or a stand so that we have some room to be able to maneuver piping for the waterer. And then we will install a top and a door, so again, no light can get in to the tank. I got the base flooring cut. I made sure that this is a nice thick piece to be able to support all the weight of that water. So the tank that we have is a 30-gallon tank, which is going to be quite a bit of weight. So I want to make sure that we've got enough support for that. You will notice that I've got 2x4s to support this base flooring on the sides and some supports through the middle and on the ends. Now, I've made this slightly oversized from the measurement between the two walls, so that I'm going to have to, tap it in place in an attempt to seal off as much of the incoming light sources as possible. Now, we're probably still going to have to come in and tape this, but as the tape wears and cracks, still want to try to keep as much light out of here as possible. So I got the platform in. Here's the tank on top of it. That gives me plenty of room to be able to route tubing around or electricity for heating elements. So the next step is to go ahead and get some insulation so that we can insulate this, because another problem that we had in Colorado was the pipe, and particularly the tubing, would freeze. And so we're going to be doing a lot of things here in Washington to try to prevent that freezing from happening. And so one of the things that we're going to do is, this is a standard RV water tank, and so they have heating pads that you can set this tank on. We're going to go ahead and get one of those heating pads and install it, as well as some heater wire that we can run along the tubing to try to prevent that freezing during the winter months. After we get that insulation and the heating pad installed, then we'll be ready to install the top ceiling of this compartment and the door, and that should block off all of the light. All right, so continuing on with the waterer for the chickens. I have come in and I have put in insulation on all of the walls, and on these two walls I've got paneling up. I'll put paneling on the back wall as well. Insulation is to keep this area warm throughout the winter so that the tank doesn't freeze. Paneling, I've put that up so that if we do get critters that get into this cavity, they won't get into the insulation and chew it up. I've also got electricity run so that we can power heaters in this cavity without needing to open it up. I will be putting a panel on this top portion and then insulating that as well. I have also, come up here, you can see that I have capped off where the insulation is again, so that if critters get in here, they won't be able to chew up the insulation. So I'm going to get this panel on, I'm going to get the panel on the back, get this top insulated, then we can get the tank in here and just about ready to start plumbing the tank. So we've had some pretty wet weather the past few weeks. Haven't been able to get out here to work on this waterer until now. So we're going to try to get this waterer finished off while it's dry today, and if we don't quite get it done today, finish it off tomorrow. So we've got the heater installed underneath the tank. I don't have it plugged in yet because there's no water in there. So now we need to do all of the plumbing for the watering tank. We've got 3 connections we need to make. The first connection is this bottom right hand that will go out to the watering nipples that the chickens will actually use to get the water. The one on the bottom left will be the fill. This is going to come out through this right hand wall so that we can fill it from the outside. Eventually we'll get it connected to a gutter so that we collect the rainwater that collects on the top of the chicken coop. Then we need an overflow, which will be this one on the top left, and this is just going to come straight down and go through the floor so that if we collect too much water from the gutter, it isn't building up inside of this cavity. It runs out and drains out the bottom. So first thing we need to do is drill out this plug for the fill, and then we're going to put in all of the fill plumbing. We're going to start with the fill plumbing because the fill plumbing is the larger diameters. It's going to be a lot harder to put those in, and so we want to do those first because then we can work around them with the smaller plumbing that's easier to route. So it's about 50 degrees today, and so this flex pipe gets pretty hard and not wanting to be very flexible, even though it's flex pipe, at these temperatures and below. So I found that if you just heat it up a little bit with a hair dryer or a heat gun, don't need to do much, just heat it up enough so that it becomes flexible, gets a lot easier to put on these fittings. So one of the things that we learned from doing this in Colorado is in Colorado we did most of our plumbing for the chicken waterer with glue-on PVC. And that turned out to be a problem because if we ever had an issue with something freezing and cracking, we had to cut it out and do a lot of patching and repair work just to get that crack fixed. So here in Washington, what we're going to do is we're going to do most of this with flex pipe and clamp-on fittings so that it's easier to repair if something does fail. All right, so what we're going to do next is we're going to drill through the wall here so that we can get our pipe through, our flex pipe. Now, I don't have a hole saw that's the exact right size for this flex pipe. Got one that's slightly smaller and one that's a bit bigger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use one that's slightly smaller and then come in afterwards with a drum sander to enlarge the hole so that we can get that pipe to fit nice and snug through that hole. This will also allow me, because I got to go through 2 panels, to bias the holes if they don't quite line up exactly. All right, so we've got the fill tube in on the inside. We need to connect some plumbing on the outside now. So on the outside, we're going to attach this T with a clear plastic pipe so that we can see how much water is in the tank without needing to open up the chicken coop or even come inside. We can see this from outside. We could even put some floating colored ball in here so it would be clearly visible. Now we want a T in here so that we can install a valve on the bottom and be able to easily drain the tank without having to disassemble everything and get that compartment inside the chicken coop soaking wet. All right, so on this downspout, I don't have a valve for it right now. I couldn't find quite exactly what I was looking for. And so right now we're just gonna put a plug in here that will allow us to remove the plug and drain the tank when we do find the right valve that we want for this. So right now our filling plumbing for the tank is done. We can fill from the top of this tube. It will go into the tank. It's going to fill from the bottom up. So as the water level in the tank rises, the water level in this tube will rise, and we'll be able to know how full the tank is. So now we're going to start working on the plumbing for the water nipples, because that's going to be the next hardest to route, because I've got 2 fixed points that I got to go between. All right, it is the next morning and we are ready to finish off this chicken waterer. Last night I glued up the chicken waterer, the nipples for them to peck at and get water. So that's already glued together. I also made a support. So this is just a 2x4. I've cut half of a hole in it to put at the end of that pipe to support it, so it's supported on both ends. And so now we're going to get this installed, and then we'll put some water in it so that we can do some leak testing. All right, so that's installed. We have this separated from the wall here a good distance because we're going to put in an automatic feeder behind the waterers. So I want to make sure it's far enough away that we can get that in there. And we'll talk about this later on. But right now, let's get some water in here and make sure that we don't have any leaks. So we have already taken down the hoses. We've already taken down the hoses for the season, and it got below freezing last night. So I don't want to pull the hoses out. So we're just going to fill this up to do the leak tests with some pitchers of water from the house. If we pass the leak test, then once it warms up this afternoon, I can get the hoses out and fill it up all the way. Now, we don't need a lot of water. We just need enough that we can get water in all of the different pipes. So the water level is right at the top of this T connection. And I went and bled the water nipples, and it just started to get water out of that first nipple. So this tells me that when the water is right here to the top of this T, the tank is low enough that we absolutely have to get water in it, because it's just barely getting water to the nipples. So to look for leaks, I've spread some brown paper, dry brown paper, underneath all of the joints. Gonna let this sit for 45 minutes to an hour, come back and see if any of the paper is wet. If the paper is dry, then we should be leak-free. But if we've got some water on the paper, that will be very visible,
and tell us if we've got a leak. All right, so we've got some leakage. Looks like everything else is okay, but we do have some leakage here, so let's see. Let's tighten that up. See if we can figure out where it's leaking from. Here, you want to hold that? It looks like it's from the clamp based on where the water's coming down. If it was from the threads, I would expect it to come further up. Oh, well.
That may be residual, but...
No, I don't want it. I would expect for it to drip right there if it was from the threads. Alright, tighten that up. We'll let that sit, see what it looks like. Alright, so it was still leaking after we tightened it, so I'm going to pull this fitting off and replace it, and hopefully that fixes the leak. I've already opened up the inlet and drained as much as will come out from that inlet. It's not completely below the level of that fitting, so I'm going to put a towel in here to try to capture as much of this water as we can. All right, new fitting is in and gave everything a good dry. Gonna go ahead and put some more water in here so we can do another leak test. All right, we've let this sit for a couple hours and paper is dry. So we fixed the leak. Let's get this thing filled up. All right, I saw water come out the overflow. Tank is full. And so we are just about good to go. All right, so one thing that we want to do is we want to mark on the tube where full is, so that when we connect this to the gutter, we can cut this down and just be able to show between full and empty. One last thing, this feeder tube with the water nipples is just out in the open, and so we're going to wrap a heater cord around it to keep it from freezing. So because if it freezes and breaks, this is all glued together PVC, it's really hard to replace and fix. So want to try to keep that from breaking if we can. So it has been about 3 months since we got the water installed. We've used about half of the water since then, and so we should be able to go a good 3 to 4 months without needing to refill the water. This has been winter months, so they haven't been drinking quite as much. In the summer, they'll probably be drinking more. Now, unfortunately, winter crept up on us a little too quick, and we were not able to get the water connected to the gutter system
to collect all of the rainwater and snow melt that we've been having. We'll get that done in the spring, but it's just been too cold. I haven't wanted to be out here in freezing temperatures working on that. So the water has been working out very well, even without the water collection system. As I said, it's been a couple of months since we've got this set up, and they still have plenty of water. The chickens have been able to get in and stay hydrated just fine over these past couple of months. So it's been working out quite well. We've had no freezing issues, which has been good, and we've had multiple weeks where we've been below freezing. And so we think we've fixed that particular problem. So when we get this updated with the gutter system, we will talk about that. But until then, this is Lumberjack with Barely Homesteading, saying use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without. Please like and subscribe, and we will see you next time. Bye.